Dear learners, welcome back to CS3244 Machine Learning. And today's guest star is Laurence Liew.
My name is Laurence, and I'm the Director for AI Innovations over in AI Singapore. My background is basically in AI, but I'm not a computer science graduate. I'm actually a graduate from NUS School of Engineering, Mechanical. But I've been, doing programming since my undergrad days, and I also have a master's from NUS ISS for their knowledge engineering program. So been involved in AI, high performance computing for the last 25, 30 years of my career.
So Laurence, you're the head of AI Singapore, and AI Singapore is a national initiative. But in some ways it's a little small, right? Compared to AI mega budgets that we see in large multinational corporations, and also national initiatives like the ones in the US or in China, or even the emerging superpower of Canada. So purely from a numeric perspective, AI in Singapore is a little bit small, small fry. So, what can we say about Singapore's niche in AI or role in AI globally?
Yeah, so we have to look at it from a numeric perspective, like you mentioned. Countries like China, Canada are an order or two bigger than Singapore, and the number of researchers, accordingly, it's a lot bigger, and the amount of money that we are spending, and here in Singapore, we are investing 150 million back in 2017, and another 200 million just last year. The amount of money that we're spending in AI, not just AI Singapore, but AI in Singapore in general, I think it's more or less equivalent, if not more, per researcher than the other countries, right? I mean, we have talked to some of these overseas researchers, and they say, wow, that's a lot of money for a researcher. Yes, our overall budget may seem small compared to some of the larger countries or organizations, but I think if you look at on a per researcher basis, I think we are doing fairly well. So on our niche, one of the unique things about AI, machine learning in general, right? Or machine learning, AI is very broad. There are scope of AI that doesn't use data at all, right? The rule-based system and so on. But let's look at machine learning. One of the unique thing is that in machine learning, it needs data, and very often it means that the data set you get will determine how accurate that model is being built. And that also means that localization is super important. So a model that's built in China with Chinese data sets is not going to work well most of the time if just implemented in Singapore. Now, even within NUS campus, right, we have facial recognition systems in some of the buildings. To date, I still hear of some of our colleagues that are not of Asian descent that the camera just cannot work. Does he look? He looks exactly like us, right? A pair of eyes, nose, mouth, but it just doesn't work. Okay, and also coming to Singlish, we have to Google, the Siri, and so on. But those were trained with American or European data sets, and we know Google is building up the Singlish capability here also. But to build a good Singlish engine that will serve the Singapore economy and companies is super important, because most of us Singaporeans, we speak in that manner, whether is it a Singlish slang or you speak with English and Malay in the same sentence, or English and Mandarin in the same sentence, what the NLP folks call a code switch, right? So that's super important. So that localization would necessarily mean that whatever AI we are building, you need to take into account the local context. And that also means that even you have the giants out there, when they come into Singapore or ASEAN, they need to localize, and that's where the opportunity is for Singapore and for you guys who's going to graduate.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think it mirrors my own migration to Singapore. So I'm American-born. I'm American-born Chinese, and I came to Singapore for my first and still only job as a grown adult. So I also had to ask my PhD colleagues who were familiar with Singapore. I had to look around because there are not so many Singaporeans abroad at that time. So they educated me on how Singlish is used. So, Lawrence, our learners also might not be so familiar with the initiative that you lead, this AI Singapore, especially the one for policy on human resource development. So, I've heard you speak a couple times in some of your presentations, and you use this phrase called grow your own timber. So, can you help explain what that phrase means?
So growing our own timber really came about uh, um, because of the experience of building up the various programs in AI Singapore. So one of AI Singapore's mission is to grow the local talent pool of people who knows how to do AI. And being AI NRF funded, obviously this talent pool refers to the researchers as the primary target. But as we executed or try to execute industry projects, we also need AI engineers, right? People who are going to work with the researchers, with the companies to actually build the AI products. And back in 2017, when we tried to hire this group of engineers, we advertised. We had fantastic response, 200 plus resumes. Unfortunately, out of that 200, I only had like 10 resumes from Singaporeans, and out of that 10, I only managed to hire one who's still with us today. So I said, well, as AI Singapore, we cannot have so little Singaporean engineers. And we brainstormed, and we came up with the AI apprenticeship program, which is to identify Singaporeans who are passionate about data, passionate about AI and machine learning, and actually have been learning on their own. Now, some of them would have the benefit of a computer science degree, right? Some may not have, even if they studied computer science from SOC, because they graduated 4, 5, or maybe 10 years ago when AI wasn't that popular. So the AI apprenticeship program that we have is really targeting Singaporeans who actually self-taught themselves to a large extent, AI, Python, and so on, and not through some boot camp that you attend 3 weeks and yes, I know AI. These are people who may have spent, I know one gentleman spent 3 years learning from scratch. Okay, and most of the younger apprentices or candidates, spend at least a year, if not more, learning Python, machine learning, and so on, right? And they get to a state where they pass our technical tests, and then we take them in. So this is what we mean when we say, growing your own timber. Own timber meaning Singaporeans, and growing is because these people have been learning Python and machine learning algorithms from books, from MOOCs, and so on. They never really had a chance to build real-world projects. So in the apprenticeship program, we continue to deep skill them, but we also expose them 7 months intensive working in a real AI project that is easily $250,000 to $500,000. Real project, not another Titanic or New York City, data sets, right? Real projects, and they are actually exposed to the real world problems of AI, meaning, is there enough data? The data, is it clean? So they are not given nice CSV files that all they need to do is apply the algorithms. They are going to build within 7 months end to end and deploy the project that actually is running in customer premise, the AI model, right? So that's the AI apprenticeship program, and that's what we mean by growing our own timber. Finding this group of Singaporeans who are very passionate about learning data, machine learning, have self-taught themselves to a level which in a short time, 9 months, we can say that this is an AI engineer, and some of the graduates actually land up in data scientist roles today.
And that's amazing. I look at the output of this program and it's fantastic. And I think a lot of our learners in our course are also looking forward to joining it if they're qualified. So thanks, Laurence, for that fabulous introduction on AI Singapore and the programs there. So, dear learners, we'll be back with Lawrence a little bit later in the lecture.